Today we got a hub for a Mac Mini. It's got 2 storage bays on the bottom of it for 2 SSDs. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to my channel. Now if you've watched my channel before, you know I do a ton of different things on hubs and storage enclosures, and I'm a Mac channel, so it all comes around, right? Well, a couple weeks ago, maybe about a month ago, I did a video on this. This is the SATA. This is a Mac Mini, basically an M2 or an M1 Mac Mini hub. And the cool thing with this thing is it had a storage bay underneath, an M.2 storage bay on it. So if you search my channel, search for like Mac Mini hub or something, you'll find the video on the SATA one. Really good system. I recommend that. But what I found now is I actually did a video on this a while ago, but I wanted to kind of do a recap to show people that watch my channel what else is available, right? And I do product showcases. And what I mean by that is I don't do full reviews. I just want to show you what product's available right now and just let you know it's available, right? Then you guys can go and do your own research and figure out if you want to pick one up. So what I have today for this video is going to be, and I can't even say this company, but I think it's Qwiizlab or Qwiizlab or something like that. But what I have here is a very similar competing product to that SATA hub that I showed you. You can use it for basically older Mac Minis. You can use it for M1 or an M2. Should work perfectly fine. I actually will use it on this system today just to show you it works on this even over here, my iMac over here. So overall, it's a good system. Now the beauty of this one though is this one actually has a couple hidden secrets in it, and I'm going to get into that. Why should you pick one of these up? And let me give you the model number before I get too far into this. But this is going to be, it's called the, let me see, USB enclosure hub, and it's called the UH25 Pro. So the UH25 Pro by Qwiizlab or something like that. You guys can figure that name out for me. Anyways, let's get into it. I'll talk about both of these in a second. I'm going to kind of just point to the other one over there just to show you the differences, and we'll keep going. All right, so getting back to the SATA hub, it only has one M.2 enclosure on the bottom of it, and it also only had on the front of it 5 gigabit per second ports. There's a whole bunch of them. Again, check that video out. They all work fine. It's a good company to work with for sure. If you look at my website over here, my computer over here, I didn't create Amazon. Here it is, $99 for that SATA hub. So SATAs tend to have high quality products. You're going to pay just slightly more, but a lot of times it's worth it. There it is, and you can see the ports. I mean, you can go to that site and just check out my other video and see all the ports there. But that's not what this is about. Here's the Qwiizlab, or however you say it, $83.99 right here. Here's the product that I'm going to be reviewing today. You can see it right here on Amazon, $83.99 or $83.99. And the reason I like this hub is for a couple things. Now, number one, I'm going to show you close-ups as I'm talking. It's a full aluminum enclosure, I think, except for the bottom. It feels aluminum. It's kind of a light aluminum, but it definitely says it's aluminum, so I'm going to go with that. The bottom of it basically is plastic, though, and that's very similar to the SATA hub as well. Now, the reason I like this is let's get into these reasons here. Number one, this has got basically a whole bunch of different ports in the front. Let me just go through them. It's got 2 USB 3.0 USB-A ports, one 3.1A port over here as well. So the first 2 are only 5 gigabits per second, but that third one there is 10 gigabits per second, and that's an advantage right there. Then it's got the 2 card readers, as you can see. It's got a USB-C port as well over here, and that's also 10 gigabit per second. On the SATA, it was only 5 gigabits per second. These are the front ports I'm talking about. And then it's got some lights over here. So those are the ports. Now on the back over here, it's got 2 different ports, and this is what makes it kind of interesting. It's got one port that's a USB-C, and they give you a cable for it. I'll show you that cable, but it's sitting right here. And it goes basically into here, and it goes into your computer, and that's how you can go ahead and connect to your computer, obviously. But then it's got a second one over here. And the cool thing is it comes with this second cord over here. You can see it right here. And it's got a USB-C, and then on the other side's a USB-A. And you're supposed to plug this in either to your Mac Mini or to like an external power source. I believe it says over 20 watts. And you can then give more power to this hub, all right? And the reason it might need that power is if you're going to be doing 2, and I'll get into this in a second, but 2 SSDs in the bottom, plus you want to power some stuff or do a lot of different things, you know, peripherals and stuff on the front of it, it might not have enough power. But if you plug that power port into it can even be like a wall-mounted external, USB port that's over 20 watts, it'll definitely give more power to this and help everything work at once, which is a very big key here when you're dealing with a lot of power usage. So it's just something that you might need, and I'm going to show you in a second why you may not need it also. All right, so for my example, I'm going to do some speed tests here in a second as well. But on the bottom of it, take a look. I'll show you close-ups as I'm talking. But I was able to get 2 different SSDs in here. And this is the beauty of this system, 2 different SSDs. I put in a 1 terabyte 11 drive right here, and I'll get into what that is in a second. And I put in a 500 gigabyte Crucial drive. It's called the P3 in there as well. That's an M.2 NVMe drive. Now this thing takes NVMe drives and SATA drives, obviously, like you can see here. But over here in the M.2 slot, it can either take an NVMe drive or a SATA M.2. Obviously over here is a 2.5-inch drive. So just kind of like throw it out there and let you guys know it's all available. Now, the drives that I'm using in this setup is I used, first of all, let me go ahead and see if I can pick this up. So for the 2.5-inch right here, I used, it's 11 JS600. I've talked about this before. They're super inexpensive. Take a look at my screen over here. $33.99 for a terabyte right here. So $33.99 for a full terabyte. This is the 2.5-inch drive that I used. I'll have links to all this in the video description as well. And then for the NVMe drive, this is one of the best deals ever. This is called the P3. This was 500 gigabytes. It's an M.2 NVMe drive. It says up to 3,500 megabytes per second. You're not going to get that in an enclosure like this, but obviously just for reference. Look at my screen, $24.99 at 17% off right now. I'll have a link to this as well, but $24.99 for a 500 gigabyte SSD. And if that's not good enough, I think it's right here. So they have a plus version of this exact drive, which is actually even faster, and it's on a crazy sale right now. So if you look over here, it's the P3 Plus 500 gigabytes, 5,000 megabytes per second instead of 3,500. It's $26.99, so it's like $3 more. I didn't even see that, or I probably would have bought it, but it's not going to do much in this enclosure because these are very limited. So all you have to do is just take these drives, which I'm showing you here, you pop them in here, and I'll tell you one thing. I actually went ahead and I connected this to the computer, and instantly it came up with two initializations. It let me initialize them both, not at the same time, but I did one and then the other, so that when I plug this drive in now, this hub, and I plug it just through this single cord, both drives show up on my computer, and I'll show you that in a second. So it's really cool. So now you have two different drives going through one cable basically, and more or less they're both showing up on my computer as functional drives. I had absolutely no problem. I used APFS for my Mac. I formatted everything. You got to format them, obviously. Just make sure you don't format your real drive, otherwise you're going to be crying. So that's all there is to that. You basically go ahead and format them, and they both show up instantly when you plug that cable in. Oh yeah, and one thing to note, I did test it with just one cable sitting here, with not the power cable plugged in, and I ran both of those hard drives on my system, and they were both able to get enough power for it. So I didn't even need to plug in the power cable for any reason. I don't know why. I'm guessing if you started plugging in a whole bunch of stuff that kind of sucked power from the front of it, you might need to put that power cable in, but I just didn't get any scenario where I needed to use it yet. So let me know in your thoughts if you guys have used this before, but running the two drives, I had no problems, especially the drives I recommend there with this cable. All right, so let's do some speed tests, and I actually have it hooked up to my 24-inch M1 iMac right over here, so it's going to be very similar to your M1 Mac Mini. The speeds will be exactly the same. I tested that. So let me go in here, and we'll do a couple tests just to show you kind of what the speeds are going to be on this. So the first test, let me go ahead and select the right drive here. We're going to go ahead and let me see here. We're going to test the Crucial drive first, which is the M.2 drive. So let's go ahead and take a look at my screen. You can see it gets up to 730 megabytes on the writes there and 537 on the reads. I'm not sure why the writes are so much more on this. Again, it's actually a good thing, I think. 718 on the writes, what is that? 529 on the reads. So that's going to be the Crucial one. Plenty faster, right? You're not going to get the 3,500 or whatever it advertised because it's going through this hub. But overall, I think it's definitely fast enough for even video editing and stuff like that. So the next thing I want to do here is I'm going to go ahead and select the other drive really quickly, and that's going to be the 11 drive over here. So we're going to select that, and we're going to open it up, and then we're going to go ahead and start it up. Take a look. So you can see here, it's about 336.5 on the writes. And let's see what we can get over here. It's going to be right around 300, give or take, on the reads, all right? So not too bad, not too shabby, and overall I think it's actually not a bad system, right? You basically get two different drives you can put in here, and I showed you how cheap these drives are. One was 26 bucks and the other one was like 31 bucks, and I got 1.5 terabytes of extra space on this awesome hub over here. Gives me all the additional ports at 10 gigabits per second on those ports as well. So what else can you ask for, right? I guess let's just talk about some of the negatives and then we're gonna wrap this up. All right, just a few negatives. On the bottom of it, obviously, you have this little plastic case here that it goes into. You really need to kind of cool these. If you're going to be putting in a really kind of fast NVMe drive in here, you probably want to put some heatsink on it. It comes with some rubber stoppers and stuff like that, but it doesn't do much for the heat, obviously. The 2.5 drive doesn't get too hot, but you probably want to put some kind of a heat, at least some kind of maybe aluminum on there or some kind of heat tape. Although the heat tape's not going to work well because it's got a plastic bottom. It doesn't really have anywhere for the heat to go there. So just keep that in mind. It obviously lays like this on top of your computer, and it's going to cause a little bit of heat there. But besides that, I haven't noticed tons, especially with what I'm using it for. With that speed and stuff, it's not totally pushing that drive, so it's not getting really hot for me, but just keep that in mind. The other thing is this is a couple years old now, actually, and this is the Pro version again. They believe it's the UH25 Pro, but it's still a couple years old, so there's probably going to be some newer technology coming out soon. But overall, I've had no problems with it, and let's wrap this up. All right, so what do you think? Not too bad, right? Anyways, it's the UH25 Pro model. Pick one up. They're like, what are they? 80 something bucks, 83 bucks and some change. If you need that extra space for your M2 or M1 Mac Mini, it's a great way to do it. Is it the fastest one in the world? No, but I mean, we're adding some cheap storage here. So at the end of the day, I would just say buy one, pick one up, put some cheap storage in it, use it as a kind of an extra storage device, and you'll be happy with it. If you need faster stuff, get Thunderbolt 4. Obviously, it's a lot more money, but in the end of the day, if that's what you need, that's what you need, and this may not do it for you. We'll talk to you soon. Talk to you in a couple days. Peace.